Hello and welcome to the next incredibly amazing episode of Learn From Us podcast. Do you remember that one time Tim wore them swishy pants in the studio?
It's like the Seinfeld episode.
Yeah, Tim just turned on our cameras and he's wearing jeans today, but I do remember that one cold wintry day where he was wearing swishy pants, and that really made me laugh. And we're back to a swishy jacket.
Do any of our listeners make jingles?
Paul wants for a deal of the week, our deals of the week. Welcome to the Learn From Us podcast.
Yes,
I'm Seth. This is Paul. We're here twice a week giving you Paul's take, hot, fresh take on topics of the week, day, month, and year. Everything from
decade,
investments to real estate to dinosaurs.
Yes, dinosaurs and business. Don't forget business.
That's right. But what Paul really wants is we have a deal of the week episode that we do with Andrew, where Andrew brings us a real estate deal. Paul looks at it.
I'd never seen it before.
That's right, and it sort of makes an assessment whether it's a good deal or bad deal. But Paul's dying for a deal of the week jingle.
We need a jingle.
We need like a deal of the week, deal of the week.
I think that's what's going to end up being, by the way.
Well, neither of us have the musical skills.
That's what's going to make it wonderful.
Or recording.
Well, we'll find that.
Okay, so if you're out there, if you're of our 74 listeners out there, if one of you deals in jingles,
I think somebody just canceled. Like we're down to 73.
Yes. Usually we say yes. So like, follow, and subscribe. We need more than 74 listeners.
By the way, we have way more than 74 listeners.
That's a joke. That's a joke. We have 77. Good to see you again, Paul.
Likewise, it's been a while.
It has. I spent a week in Utah.
Utah's beautiful.
It was one. You've been there.
One time.
I went to a Jazz game. You and I both sort of like to attend other NBA
How
arenas.
many have you been to?
Well, I just said you and I, meaning you've been to a lot, and I've been to
how many
maybe
have you been to?
Four or five more.
That's it?
Yeah,
4 or 5 more than me.
More than Cavs.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so we did Houston together. I just
right.
did, I've done Philly. I can't remember a few more. Maybe Atlanta once. I can't remember. But anyway, we did Utah, and it was awesome. The people out there are really great. The stadium's incredible. My kids are in love with mascots, and they didn't get to meet the mascot, but they got their little stuffed animals, and we had a great time.
Did you take a Kyle Korver Cavs jersey with you?
Jay Crowder's also on the team.
Jay Crowder is also on the
so
team.
So I found myself, my wife wasn't really dying to go to some other game. Like
Really?
It wasn't the Cavs. We could not wipe the smiles off our face. We were just like standing and cheering for the Jazz. It was a weird feeling.
Isn't that incredible?
But it was awesome. It was a great environment. Now, I wanted to get serious with this podcast episode. I asked you if you now listen. We don't dive too far into politics on this show.
Oh,
It's somewhat separating.
oh,
Obviously, but we're not going to this time. I just want to get your thought. So, I like watching John Oliver. I think he's funny.
Yes.
And I've mentioned this to you.
Yes.
I would say he has somewhat of a liberal agenda-ish. He basically spends his show making fun of politics. Mm-hmm. It's quite easy with the president.
Yes.
It's quite easy at times with some of the things that are said that are kind of funny, actually.
Yeah. His tweets.
All that stuff. Yeah, the misspellings, hamburgers. And,
Is that what he did?
Yeah.
That's funny.
Hamburgers.
Is that Hank typing for him?
But Hank's my son. Last Sunday, he did a special on, I wouldn't call it real estate, mobile homes.
Oh.
Okay? And when he hits you with that, like, and today's topic is mobile homes. You're like, I didn't know I gave a shit about mobile homes, but he kind of lets you. So the point, I don't know if, I don't know if this is like listen, maybe a lot of people just turned off when they heard the topic is mobile home. but the point is, I was just interested in this. Like, you have the mobile home / trailer park places, and I didn't really know the ins and outs about who gets into these, how does it work with the land underneath them. And apparently he was describing how a lot of people who can't afford a home get a mobile home. It's called a mobile home because they just deliver it, but once it's set, it's very rare to actually move these. You know all about these, right?
Yeah, I mean, I know. I shouldn't say I know all about
them,
these.
right.
I just
know of them.
I have an understanding.
And so they then in turn sort of rent the land underneath them.
They don't sort of rent it; they actually do rent it.
Thank you.
No
So
problem.
one of the things apparently that some big real estate firms are now kind of understanding
Uh-huh.
is that these people are somewhat held hostage in their houses.
Uh-huh.
In that if we just raise rent,
It's hard for them to move.
they don't have any choices.
Okay.
And John Oliver does it in a funny way. He's like, no, I'm not going to say that they're not going to come out and say that they're holding these people hostages. But here's a clip of one of this main guys saying that we're in one of his online universities saying that, yeah, we hold these poor people hostage. They have nowhere to go and they have no choices. And so I was talking about one of them. Oh gosh, I just forgot the company name, but it was a company name. They have $200 billion. They're worth $200 billion. And their new thing now is they're going around and buying up 60 unit, 70 unit mobile homes, raising rent until the person on top of the land has no choice but to leave. And I was trying to explain this to my wife. Like, I imagine the only thing they really worry about is that monthly, if they can get their monthly money off of that house or off that land, they don't really care who's in it or who they might have just pushed out of it.
What's the goal of pushing them out?
Well,
because you said like they're going to raise the rent.
That's what I
until they
struggled
leave.
with. Is like, is there always? I thought it would parallel to what we're trying to do in real estate. In that, here's why I'm parallel.
Holding people hostage.
Here's the parallel. We had discussions about. There's been some like Crossroads has had some online. We've talked about some topics online where you say the goal is to get a place that's kind of crappy.
Uh-huh.
Fix it up.
Uh-huh.
Make the rent higher so that we can make more money.
It's value add.
Value added. Thank you. And one guy, that one guy on the internet made a comment like, well, why would you want to do that and force out the people who now can't afford it?
Uh-huh.
And so the premise was, maybe you could help me because like, it's a big business what the mobile home owners are now doing. And John Oliver is saying, well, we need to take steps so that they don't. So I guess my point is, and we're seeing it in cities. Where am I going with all of this? Is at what point does someone who wants to make money increase rents on a thing? What point of like moral dilemma is there in raising rents and forcing out the people who can't really afford it? What are your thoughts on all this? That just took me 17 minutes to describe where I'm going with this. But
Yes.
someone said that to you. Why would you want to rehab that place and just force out the people who are already there who can't afford it? How is that helping anybody? And the point I thought in my mind was, well, if I'm the owner, it's helping me.
So what's the owner's job? What is their responsibility? All the people who are sitting there saying that are the same people who have 401ks, probably have a savings plan, and don't they want the people they put money in to go maximize their returns? I never heard anybody say, I don't want good return. We talked about yesterday, bring up politics. Our buddy Bernie Sanders, who criticizes wealthy people, just came out and said, I'm a millionaire. Oh, and by the way, all you have to do is write a best-selling book and you become a millionaire too.
Which I kind of agreed with.
What do you mean you agreed with?
Well, I mean, it's possible.
Of course.
You've told me it's possible.
Of course, everything's possible,
to be a millionaire.
but the problem is Bernie Sanders has this take publicly of rich people are taking advantage of people and that's how they get money, but Bernie Sanders is okay. So when these people criticize an investor for finding an opportunity, and
that might be it. At what point does opportunity meet morality?
What's morality, though?
I don't know.
That's the thing. It's a
You
very
have
subjective term.
You have a group of people who are living in a mobile home or living, maybe just barely living in a place, and our main goal is to fix that place so that we can make more money and potentially shove them off to the curb. It happens in real estate development,
Yeah.
especially down in Columbus. I've noticed that there's this probably one of the highest, most price per square foot areas, German Village.
Yep.
And there's one road that separates these $3 million mansions from roads that you probably wouldn't want to drive down at night.
Yes.
It's just one road. It's Parsons. And I have noticed that at some point that the German Village houses keep coming this direction.
And it
at
probably
some
will continue
point-
to do that.
Yeah, at some point, it's just going to overtake that. And I don't know if there's a lot of people that say, where do those people go? And so that's my point. Where does opportunity And maybe morality is a wrong term.
I think morality is a hard term because it's very subjective.
Sure.
It's a very, what's moral? To me, to me, it's immoral if somebody invests money with me and I don't try to maximize their return. Now, if somebody said to me, Paul, you're kicking people out. No, I'm not. I'm not kicking anybody out. This is your rent now. You are welcome to pay it, and you're going to get a better product from me. You're welcome to do that. If you can't afford that, there are other options out there that are good for you. I'm not telling you, do they have a moral obligation to continue to pay me?
Of course not.
Of course not. Now, most people wouldn't look at it. Most people look at morality as who's rich and who's poor. The rich person is being immoral, and they're not providing something to the poor person, but it's not about that. It's about my job is to maximize returns. An investor's job is to maximize returns. That guy Skakel, what's it? Not Skakel. Who was the young punk who went and bought that drug?
Yeah, with the AIDS drug.
Yeah, and increased it a lot. And listen, that guy was a total douchebag, right?
He's in prison now.
He's in prison now, and he's got in trouble for running his business out of prison. But, it's funny that people talk about, all these, why should you do things for profit? Well, this country was built on people doing things for profit. It doesn't mean that everybody who makes a profit is a bad person. Just because you make a profit doesn't mean you're awful, because where do we draw the line?
Well, we've talked about this before, is that a lot of people do think if you make an enormous profit, you are awful. The Walmarts,
Of course. Which, by the way, they don't even make it national. They make a lot of money, but as a percentage of their revenue, it's a very low profit margin.
And you opened my mind up to that. I think I came from the idea that Walmart's terrible because they're making a lot of money.
$17 billion, but they have to bring in $500 billion to make that $17 billion. It's 3.5%.
Yeah, 3.5%, 4%. You said, and I was like, so I bring that up to people, and they're like, "Oh, the Walmarts of the world making all this money. They only have a 4% markup or something.
4% margin.
Margin,
not markup. Their gross margin is about 25%, which means every product they sell, they add about 25% of that to their bottom line. But then they have operating costs and they have salaries to pay and all that stuff.
Yeah. So going back to the mobile homes, John Oliver was saying something like, "Well,
hey John, how much money do you make a year?"
Oh, yeah, I'm sure he makes a lot.
Go buy some mobile home parks and keep those people in their parks.
Well, I mean,
that's my response. It's like for everybody who complains about those things, if it's such an important issue and such a big issue, go put a group together, buy those mobile home parks, and keep the rent the same. You're welcome to.
Well, I believe some people can act as a courier for a message that may be able to reach a bigger people. Like, I'm not expecting John Oliver to deplete his bank account.
I am. Because to me, if you're willing to go on TV to get viewers to listen to a message like that, go put your money where your mouth is.
Well, one thing he said was that he would love to see that if an original owner is going to sell the land, that he would love to see that if the entire mobile home, all the residents, if they had a chance to band together as one unit and give first right of refusal to buy this property in some way, shape, or form, and not always let it go to the highest bidder. Get on that mic.
I'm waiting for you to finish.
Okay. And not let it always go to the highest bidder, like, So
the owner should now take a hit. And by the way, first right of
refusal. I don't mean hit.
Well, they are taking a hit. If it's not going to go to the highest bidder, it's going to go to somebody else at a lower price. Right? Which means the owner takes a hit now. But is it okay because the owner has money? That's what John Oliver is saying right there. It's okay for the previous owner to do that. Let me tell a little story. And this is going to be somewhat, I'm not going to say controversial. I had to buy a lot of units in Shaker. Shaker Square, Ohio, guys. Shaker Square, Ohio it connects Cleveland and Shaker Heights. Shaker Heights is a ritzy neighborhood, multi-million dollar homes, old money Cleveland. But it's like what you explained about German Village. It's the border of Hood on one side, $1 million homes on the other side. Literally, it's right there. I come in, I start doing a lot of rehab. Everybody loved me. Oh my God, this guy's making the area better. He's wonderful. This is great. Well, then we started having some security issues in the area. And everybody's like, Paul, what can we do about this? I said, I'll tell you what. Let's all get together and we'll talk. I made a recommendation. Guys, we have about 3,000 units in the area.
I remember this
between
story.
Apartments and houses. If we all chip in $20 per unit, we will have the safest area in Cleveland. Paul, we can't do $20 a unit. What do you mean we can't? I mean, that's a lot of money. Keep in mind, these houses are $200,000 houses. $20 a month I'm talking about here.
$20 a month.
Paul, we can't do that. Why? Well, we're on fixed income. You have a $200,000 house. You can't afford $20 a month. You go to Dewey's Coffee and spend how much every single month on coffee?
$5.
Every time you
Every time
go.
you get a coffee, yeah.
I'm talking about the area. So what did I realize? That was the point I go, I need to sell. Because here, and guess what? I sold to the highest bidder, and the new owner is awful. And you know what I say to the people? Guys, you had your opportunity. You had me. I was telling you what we all needed to do. It was going to cost me $6,000 a month extra. And by the way, my profit wasn't huge. And on top of that, my taxes kept going up and up and up and up and up every single year. And guess what I was getting in return? The security wasn't better. We didn't have more police in the area. I don't blame the police department, by the way. We were the safest area in that district of Cleveland.
Now, I think you should also tell folks that when you're talking about you're also talking about your investment group.
My investment group, my company, all that stuff. Yes.
Because we talked about how the idea is like sometimes you're hesitant to say some of these things because it's not always you.
Yes, it's everybody in the company and our investors. And
when you take it back to that, going back to what you said earlier, is like, yes, if I'm investing money in someone, they damn well better be making me money.
Absolutely, because that's their responsibility.
Not gonna exist.
Now,
Yeah.
do I think they should go human traffic sex slaves to make money? No. That's where the morality comes in. That's because you're taking away from somebody else's freedom. And somebody might sit there and
you drew the line there. That's good.
I did draw the line there.
Anything
Sex slaves.
just below that, you're fine.
Yes.
Anyway, keep going.
5 minutes before the child's born. Anyhow, I look at that and think to myself, this was a group of a bunch of left-wing people who talked about the greater good of society, but nobody's willing to write a check. Why? I took it as, well, we have Paul. Paul will write the check. But then in a meeting, when the owner of Shaker Square said he took away Christmas lights, somebody raised their hand and go, well, how much would that cost? He said $30,000. The lady said, well, if we raised $30,000 a year, would you bring the Christmas light back? And he goes, well, yeah, of course I would. She goes, okay, we'll start working on that. And I was floored. I was like, I'm talking about security. Having 2 full-time police officers in cars patrolling the area 24 hours a day.
Oh, really?
Yes. And they said no to that. But with Christmas lights for 2 months out of the year, they were going to raise $30,000 for it. By the way, they didn't do either. They still didn't raise the money.
Yeah.
But everybody was so like, oh, this is Paul. This is great. And I'll be honest with you. I look at it going, they deserve whatever comes to them, because I was there saying, guys, let's work as a community. The one right winger in the entire area, there was no other right winger in the area, was the one doing the community effort. And when I was told, well, no, Paul, we can't afford $20 a month. Guys, you have a $300,000 house, you have a $250,000 house. You can't afford $20. I can't afford $20 a month. Okay. Well, then what you're telling me is it's like when you say I'm too busy. No, it's not important enough to you, because there was somebody else here named Paul who was investing tons of money in the area, making it better. And now they got what they deserve, which is a crappy owner. Hey, not my problem. So to me, the morality was they were all selfish and greedy. And I really hope some of them hear that. There were only a couple people in the area that I really respected as really caring about the area. When I say a couple people, like literally 3. One of the guys owns the restaurant, and 2 females that lived in condos in the area that I think cared about the community. So I look at it going, okay, well, I'm sorry, free markets work. That's what I love about free markets.
Maybe this is the point I'm getting to, is it just sort of hurt to hear some of the stories of these mobile home owners when it seemed like, greedy investors had found their next prey, like a helpless prey.
That was what it was pitched as.
That's what it was pitched as, yeah.
How are they helpless?
They can't move. They can't afford a real house. Mobile homes cost like 50% less. There's about 20 million people in mobile homes, and they can't move. They've invested in their home. They thought, maybe they were pitched incorrectly from the get-go, that they thought they could stay in this for a while, and it's a cheaper alternative to a real house.
So then who was the bad person, the buyer or the seller? Because if they were pitched incorrectly, if they were lied to, which I think is wrong, then I look at it and go,
They were saying a lot of them were probably lied to. I'm sure a vast majority of Americans have no idea what a mortgage is, probably including me. Can't explain how a mortgage works, how a 5-year ARM works, how interest rate actually works.
Yeah.
And so perhaps they were duped into thinking, well, they showed commercials of how the sales pitch went about,
and by the way, I want to make note, I do believe there's a lot of liars out there. I do believe there's probably a lot of people who are duped. They say, "Oh, these are poor people. They're not going to understand. Just tell them whatever they need to hear."
That was a little bit of it. He was like,
and I'm sure that's the case
in his training videos, in his
that's
seminars.
That's a different conversation altogether. That's my point.
So maybe,
hey, John Oliver, instead of worrying about the guy who did a savvy deal, let's worry about the shady guys who are pitching illegal products or not properly explaining what their pitch is. Right?
Yeah, I agree. At what point do we just leave folks who probably don't have too many more options? We just kind of leave them alone and not try and make money off of it. Like going back to Columbus, the German village versus the next street over. At what point do we not attack the houses those people are in and hope? Because I was telling my wife, I was like, well, I don't think many people think when we rebuild the neighborhood, many people don't think, where did these people go?
Okay. So my argument back is...
Go ahead.
There's a lot of liberals with money. Go buy that row of houses and secure it for the area. Why don't you?
As opposed to just leave it be?
That's what I mean. Buy the houses, leave them be, and let the people live there and the low rents. Why not?
I see what you're saying.
Free markets take care of that. If it's really that big of an issue, go buy those houses. Secure it for the poor people. You know what they're going to say? Well, I can't give that money. Oh, so wait a second. You're not going to sacrifice.
That's right.
When you said, like, well, John Oliver can't do it, I'm like, well, then if John Oliver can't do it or put groups together to do it, then John Oliver, shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
I know it's very blunt, but it's so easy to sit there and speak these words.
Yeah.
When a guy like me puts the money up, you better believe I'm here to maximize my profit. If that's called greed, I've never heard anybody look at their 401k and go, I made too much money last year.
You say this all the time. There's this strange
everybody wants to
of
be
greed.
rich. Yeah.
That's right. And so that's right. The same people are saying, damn, Paul, you look greedy by saying that. Or the same people who are going to work at any job from McDonald's to CEO and saying, if you walked in this morning and they told you you're going to make less, you'd be upset.
Yeah.
Very upset.
Yeah. I remember in college, I worked for a stats professor. We were talking about investing. He goes, well, yeah, my financial planner tells me to expect 7% a year. Anything above that, you just have to be greedy in order to get. And I go, so is Warren Buffett greedy? Knowing full well Warren Buffett's a liberal, and he probably wasn't going to bash. Well, he's like, well, no, Warren Buffett's the outlier. I'm like, but no, you just said the threshold is 7%. Above that is greed. So is Warren Buffett greedy? Is George Soros greedy? Because they've crushed 7%. You know, I look at that going, we so quickly throw the word greed around. So quickly. Why? Because somebody wants more money, it's greed. I don't consider that greed. I consider greed doing anything, legal or not, moral or not, because legal doesn't necessarily mean immoral, etc. Illegal for any sort of reason, for money. Like, okay, sex trafficking. If you're willing to do sex trafficking in order to make money, that's a little greedy. But to sit there and maximize profit, that's not greed in and of itself. We all try to maximize profit.
Yeah.
The Disney lady recently said, like, oh, nobody should make this kind of money. Well, last time I checked, you still have a trust that you can either give away, and if you can't give it away, you can take yourself out of. Your legal right is to say, I absolve myself from the trust. That is your legal right. Why aren't you doing that? Well, it's easy to say people are greedy when you have $100 million in the bank that are dedicated to you. Okay, say you're greedy all day long. Mm-hmm. That's the funny part about all this. I go, everybody who talks about greed, they all have their own investments, and you better believe when they sell their house and they sell their investments, they're trying to maximize what they make. So before you talk about greed, look at yourself and say, what am I doing?
Yeah, I just sold my house, and I totally wanted the maximum amount out of it.
As you should.
And I definitely wasn't worried if some people couldn't afford living in it.
Exactly. In fact, if somebody said to you, Seth, you paid $190 for it, I'm going to give you $260, but you got what? $325.
Yeah.
You greedy fucking piece of shit, Seth.
Yeah.
I can't believe you. You denied
we
hardworking
talked about
families
this
their
last night.
abilities. Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like on a smaller scale, it doesn't sound as bad. So if I wanted $325 million and only got $240 million,
of course,
it just sounds.
Oh, that's 100. Yeah, but it's ridiculous because guess what? In Bangladesh, $325,000 is an astronomical amount of money because the average person in Bangladesh makes $1,000 a year, if that. Right?
Bangladesh.
How many shirts do you need, Seth? That's pretty greedy.
Well, I've been watching Marie Kondo on Netflix.
What's Marie Kondo?
She's this Japanese gal that helps people clean up their houses.
Oh. I've heard about this. I think from you.
Yeah, I can't switch topics, but
The bottom line is greed is so subjective. We have to strike. It's just like saying fair share. All these things we say by the way, and again, we're not trying to get political, but I keep saying liberals. I give the left amazing credit. They do a great job of marketing. They have everybody in the world believing that fair share, greed, all these words should be used synonymous with.
It wasn't until you said fair share. I thought Bernie was a great guy.
Did you?
I did. I don't know what my opinion of him is now. But when he says fair share, that the rich have to pay their fair share, and you say fair is 25% for the person who works minimum wage and 25% for a person who makes $40 million a year, that seems very fair to me. But that's not even what they're talking about.
No,
they don't even
know what their fair share means.
I don't want to say they, because I usually assumed it was me.
Yeah.
I mean, like, I voted in that direction.
Of course.
But that does now when I hear what the term fair is.
Well, by the way, I don't know what the term fair is. That's the thing. My whole point is, what does fair mean? Fair to me means we all pay the same percentage. I'm paying more because I make more. I shouldn't pay a higher percentage because I make more. I pay, and I told you I
sent you that video last night. And
yes.
It was a graph showing like so let me show the camera. It was a graph going in this direction toward me was
wealth.
And
this was wealth here.
Yeah, wealth was up and down
Y
on the
axis.
Y. The X was like what number of
Anyway,
all of America sits at this low rung, and then right when you get to the top of the wealth amount of money, it just completely spikes up to the Warren Buffett.
It's exponential, yeah.
And to the point where if they extrapolate up the graph and take a look at it, you can't even see all of us down here compared to them. And it was talking about over $50 million, there should be a 2% tax on all that
And what
money.
I respond to you by saying?
You said it wouldn't work.
And here's why. What's this building worth?
That's right.
I have no idea.
Yeah, you said
What's my house
they
worth?
appraised this for a couple $1 million, right?
Yeah, but I argue that the appraisal was too high. So are we taxing me on?
Oh, that's right. They wanted to tax. They wanted including in someone's wealth was the assets that they own.
And then this. Is it net worth or total assets? Because I owe money on this building. So the building's worth $3 million and I owe $1.8 million. Am I taxing the $1.2 million in equity, or am I taxing the full $3 million? Because I'd make the argument of like, wait a second, we're taxing my wealth in this building.
Did you buy this building for $600,000 or something?
I did.
So yeah, and then of course that number can change depending on the economy.
Exactly.
What it's worth.
It's all posturing, and here's the thing. And then I said, I'm not even talking about double, triple, quadruple taxation. I've already been taxing the money it took me to buy this building, and then they're going to go tax me on it's like, where do we draw the line here? At what point, there's a great thing by Howard Marks where you talk about that wealth graph, right?
Yeah.
What they forget to tell you is what percentage of wage earners don't even pay taxes. Do you know what the percentage is?
50%?
It's like 40 to 50%. Don't even pay taxes. So let's do another graph of what percentage of taxes is paid by the top 10%. So Howard Marks has this thing where he talks about 10 people go to a bar. They split the bill based on who makes the most money. One person of those 10 pays 59% of the bill. Mm-hmm. So the top 10% pays almost 60% of all income taxes. So then when there's a tax cut that comes, everybody cries about, why is the top 10% and top 1% get all the tax benefits?
Sure.
Well, they paid the taxes. They pay out 60% of the taxes. The majority of the tax cut should go to them.
That's the big shtick of the Democrats is like, we're tired of tax cuts for the rich.
Then I'm tired of tax increases for the rich. Fine. I agree with you.
Yeah.
I'm okay in this world if you say to me, Paul, we need to increase taxes. But the second we have a tax cut, it's coming back. Fine. By the way, I'm not really fine with that, but at least it's progress. But now what we hear is 50% of people don't even pay, 50% of people don't even pay taxes. And then when it comes to tax cuts, well, why aren't they getting it? Well, you want money back for not paying anything? Like, literally, that's the logic. I always told people in is that a word? I always told people in college, I went to a very liberal school.
Michigan.
What if we went and did grades the same way we did taxes? Oh, you got 100% the test. You got a 70. We're going to take 10% from the 100 and give it the 70 because at least that guy got a B minus. You still got an A minus. It's still pretty good. Oh, no, but it's different. Well, why is it different? Well, I worked hard on this one. Oh, so I don't work hard because, well, you were born with an advantage. So you weren't born with an advantage by being a little bit smarter and blah, 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 blah.
How did we get, I've brought this up before and you have opened my eyes to this. I don't know how it's even been ingrained in me. Like, we absolutely have to work our butts off to make money. But then when we see someone with money, they automatically don't deserve it and they make too much of it.
Yep.
I can't figure
They didn't
out
work hard to get it.
who cornered the market, no pun intended, on getting these two ideals out there. Like, my dad drove a dump truck, came home sweaty and dirty every day.
And both my parents were doctors.
Right, but I was told you got to work really hard to make that money, and I'm trying to ingrain this into my kids. But there's this general sense, like the Walmarts of the world, these people are greedy, terrible, rich people who just want to make more and more money. How did we get? Maybe that's a weird question, but
No, it's not. So the reason I brought up my parents was a lot of people would look at my situation and say, well, Paul came from money. That's not fair. To which I sit there and say, okay, that sounds good. What do we all think of kids with money? Spoiled brats, right? So how many of them end up doing what I'm doing? Very few, right?
Very few.
So instead of condemning me, why aren't we sitting there saying, hey, here's a guy who took advantage of every situation he was given and made it better? But we don't do that. We criticize me saying, well, it's easy for Paul because he came from money. Oh, well, I know a lot of people came from money who don't do shit with it, right? Same thing with you. You didn't come from money, and now you've made a good living.
Yeah.
Right? And it's getting better. Every year is getting better than last year.
That's right.
And now you're about ready to buy a beautiful home that you never thought was possible probably in high school.
That's right. Absolutely.
Right. And I'm looking at that going, at some point, you're going to be that guy. At some point, you're going to be the guy that everybody looks at and goes, well, it must be nice. It must be. Well, I'm not going to mention people, in your family, but some people in your family think maybe that you have things easier than others.
Yeah.
Right?
I've been lucky.
You've been
I've been very lucky.
You were born in the same house, same uterus, no offense. Same.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Sorry, Mom.
Sorry, Tim. I don't think Tim heard.
Well,
but we talk about these things, and the same thing. But the reason it brings it all back is the mobile homes.
yes, thank you.
Why is it that we condemn somebody for making money? If they are doing it illegally, immorally, blah, 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 whatever that means, I agree. If they're sitting there and saying to the poor people, hey, you know what? We had a contract, but I'm just going to renege on the contract, and guess what? Sue me, you fuckers. Okay, that's wrong. We're right now suing an insurance company, and part of my issue with my brother is, Mikey, we have to go through with this trial, because if we don't, the average person won't be able to. We have the money to go fight these guys. And I literally said that. I'm not trying to be, Aaron Brockovich over here, trying to be this like humanitarian, but I'm sitting there saying this insurance company gets away with it because they know people can't afford to fight them. We can afford to fight them. Let's go teach them a lesson.
Andrew told me the same thing. I have an insurance claim on my home that Andrew's helping me with.
Yep.
Should I talk about this? Probably not.
Why not? I mean, it's up to you. I mean, it's perfectly...
A big windstorm came through my house, and my home touches my property touches 7 other homes in a tight community.
Very tight.
Very tight, yeah. Like, I could,
easily throw a rock.
And hit houses all around me. And I pulled up a map overhead, and every single house that touches me through the neighborhood just keeps extending. They all got new roofs from their insurance companies. I'm the lone. I didn't get a roof. So it's just a funny picture when all these greens. And I felt bad even. But so the insurance company denied my claim, didn't even laughed me off of the claim, and I took it because I was a nice guy. And Andrew's been helping me, and Beth and I have been feeling bad because Andrew's been working his butt off. Talking to the insurance people and fighting for me, and Andrew said the same thing. I'm not doing this specifically for you. The next time this insurance company is going to do this to someone, it's going to be some 75-year-old grandma who's just going to take it and lose out on potentially getting a roof that she most likely deserves. I have water damage in my house. I mean, it's just crazy. But anyway, well, I don't even know if we got to my question. I do. I'd love to see you watch this episode of John Oliver. Maybe we can talk about it. That was what I was struggling with, is the idea of investing and making more money for me and our investors, while at the same time potentially exploiting poor people who probably don't have as many options as me. Maybe that's the wrong verb, exploiting. I don't know.
And I think it's great because it gives an opportunity for a nonprofit or some other group to come in and say, you know what, and by the way, I'm sure there are incidences in cities where somebody very wealthy went in and bought a lot of buildings and said, you know what, I'm going to go put some money in them, make them better, and charge a reasonable rent that people can afford. And they're doing it not because they're making money, because they're looking at it saying, I'm okay losing money, but that's okay for me.
Well, it's interesting you say reasonable rent, because they could very well come in and raise all. that was your first question. They could very well come into the mobile home, raise all the rents, get all the people out of there or whatever, and then no one can afford it. So it's empty, and that would last how long with zero occupancy?
Yes.
So
free markets tend to work themselves out.
that's right. So it's interesting you said that was your first question. It's like, well, what are they doing after they kick out all the people who can't afford it? And I was like, I don't really know.
Well, it's the same thing as like San Francisco. That's probably the most expensive city in the country.
Yeah.
When I hear people complain about it, I say to them, God, who's the asshole who put a gun to your head and said, you must live in San Francisco. You have to live here and pay $3,500 in rent. Well, Paul, my job's here. You can't find a job in any other city in the country that's reasonable. You made a decision. Now, the poor person living in a mobile home, I can understand that a little bit different, but legal aid's there. Hey, go to legal aid and say, guys, I think I'm being taken advantage of. And if legal aid sees an issue with it, guess what they're going to do? They're going to probably help you. Maybe I'm making it simplistic, but I look at it going, there's a lot more generous people out there than people think.
This probably comes back to the idea that, like, what you stress all the time, which I guess as a, I don't even mean to say, like, as a liberal type person, you stress the idea that, like, everyone has a chance to, like, what am I trying to say? You just said, well, maybe they could go and try to find legal aid. Do you think some normal person doesn't know anything about anything, maybe not that intelligent, is going to have the wherewithal to find it? And it's like, well, actually, you can, you know. I struggle with this conversation with my wife, you know. Like, I just envision people go to work and people go to school, and in the evening we have our 6 hours of life. And some people choose to sit around and watch the Indians, and some people choose to get a side hustle, you know. Mm-hmm. I've spent a lot of my life from 8 p.m. to midnight building businesses, mm-hmm. you know, and my wife doesn't think that everyone can actually do that.
By the way, not everybody can, and that's okay. My thing is, it's okay, but if that's not your thing, you can't complain about somebody else it being their thing. Just like if I heard somebody, like, it bothers me about what, you know, busy, wealthy people do. Oh, I wish I had time to sit down and watch a baseball game. Well, why don't you? Well, I got so much stuff going on. You chose to have a lot of stuff going on. You can't bitch and complain because you don't have time to go sit down and watch an Indians game, which, by the way, you do have time. You just choose not to. More power to you.
Yeah.
Everybody has choices in this world. And if you start to think you don't have choices, that's called victim mentality.
Yeah.
And I'm going to tell you right now, you're going to be stuck. You're going to be stuck in a rut for a long time. For a very long time. Everybody has choices. And especially the wealthy person. Oh, I don't have time. Yeah, you of all people have the time to do whatever you want.
Yeah.
You could just stop working tomorrow.
Well, this was a heavy episode.
It's very heavy.
I just want to get your thoughts on this because I wouldn't say what they were doing, exploiting people reminded me of you, but definitely like getting real estate, working it up, and charging more.
Well, can I give an example that people probably think I'm awful for?
Well, before you say that, hold that thought because maybe I just said it out loud. That's the point is you would buy a place that needs work, fix it up, and charge more. I think the gist of what they were going to do is just charge more.
FYI, I've done that before too.
Oh, okay. Tell me about it.
I bought a 100-unit property in Columbus where we knew the rents were so low.
That's right.
Very first day we owned it.
Because maybe that owner just wasn't working as hard to
whatever that means.
Market it.
Correct.
Or
$545 in rent. We charged $705 for a unit that next day. Now, we didn't charge it to the existing tenants first day because we by law cannot. But the second renewals came up, we said, guys, our plan is to remodel this property and get $895. So if you want to stay, your new rent is $705. We didn't even kick them out. We said, hey, listen, the market is $705. Oh, Paul, you're a jerk. Okay, sorry. And guess what? There are plenty of other options for you. And guess what?
It never crosses your mind where do these people go?
Yeah, it crosses my mind exactly. Right next door.
What do you mean?
They have other apartment buildings in the area, and they all found places to live. It's fine.
You're right. They do.
They all have options. When people think there aren't options, then I'm sorry if you're that ignorant to think that. No offense to you, Seth. If you were one of those people, there are places to go. There are places.
Yeah. No, I wouldn't. I'm hoping I wouldn't consider it ignorance. It was just a little bit of like.
I don't mean you to be ignorant. I just mean it in the sense of like society in general. If we really think that it's like when people say, "What happens if we all of a sudden have electric cars? What happens to the people who work at the engine factories?" They'll find jobs. Just like when people when we started making cars.
See, that's never crossed my mind, you know?
When we started making cars, a locomotion business suffered.
Yes.
That mean everybody's without a job forever? No.
I bought a Tesla, and the Tesla people...
You ruined somebody's life, by the way.
Yeah, Tesla people are very raw when they outperform other car companies in quarters. And you're right. At no point are they like, yes, they beat Ford, so Ford's probably going to have some layoffs, or... You're right. We don't think that way.
You did a great job of costing somebody in Detroit their job. Thank you, Seth.
Yes.
Somebody's going to lose their house because of you. But the same logic could apply. The same logic that you use there, I could use here going, oh, so you're okay with somebody in Detroit losing their job. Hasn't Detroit suffered enough? Come on, this is Youngstown, where Tim is from. How many Lordstown plant? I mean, they just announced the layoffs there a few months ago. Is it done? Oh, I thought they said they were going to try to save it. Okay, Lordstown's done.
Well, if you want to, Paul, thanks for this episode. We are on YouTube. If you want to argue with Paul, he will personally argue with you about this stance.
It's not arguing.
If you'd like to comment below.
If you'd have good engagement, yes, comment below. Is that what you do?
Well, my kids watch these crazy YouTubers. Like these, I mean, most of them are like 27-year-old males who are just screaming and like yelling and
What are they screaming about?
You and I will sit down and we will like see who can make the grossest pizza and eat it. And then like it literally gets 27 million views in like a week. Like
yes.
And my kid, to the point like my kid wants their merch for his birthday.
Seriously?
Like hats and stuff. You remember Dude Perfect, right?
I have no idea who Dude Perfect is.
You've never heard Dude Perfect? So you probably saw this 10 years ago. These guys that would like make these trick shots.
Oh.
These basketball shots, right?
Yeah, I mean, I've seen people like that.
Seems simple, right? And
it's super hard.
Yeah, but then they would go in a blimp or they go on a top of a stadium. These guys have developed into a full media production.
Really?
They have, I'm going to call it a 100,000 square foot facility with like a full 7-camera. All they do all day is do dumb shit, record it, and just I don't know how they make money.
What greed.
Right? Yep. And my kid wants the Merc. He's got the hat. He's got the shirts.
Really?
This is what kids want nowadays. So anyway, I don't know how we got on that, but so check out our merch store.
We have no merch store.
For Paul Gabrail headbands, prophylactics, and tennis rackets.
And contraception.
Yeah. Oh, of course.
Of course.
Go back and forth. So, okay. Well, Paul, thank you so much for this.
Thank you.
I hope people, I wonder what people are going to think about the words you just said. And
I imagine that the viewers and listeners of our podcast are probably a little bit more leaning in my direction politically than the other direction.
You think?
Yeah, I would imagine so. I mean, just when you just look at statistics economically, it's probably the case. I mean, I'm not saying 90-10, but yeah,
yes.
It's fun.
If you disagree with Paul, call in. We'll do a live call-in
That would be
show.
great, wouldn't it?
Yes, it would be.
I remember the first time I ever did a radio show in college, I said like 3 words. It was a debate about the war in Iraq. I got like 3 words in, and it was just like, oh, this sucks.
You were
Yeah.
email info@learnfromus.com.
And we'll get you on the podcast.
And we'll get you, well, depending on who you are. I mean, we're not going to have any Joe Schmo in here. You were born in Iraq, right?
I was born there.
Yes. That's nice, an immigrant.
I'm an immigrant. That's why I tell people, I'm like, I'm just a first-generation immigrant who just made it here, which is a complete crock of shit, but it's the funny joke part of it.
Of course.
It doesn't hurt when your parents are both doctors.
Thanks for joining us, everyone. Join us every Monday and Thursday for new releases of the podcast.
YOLO.
And questions and comments. Hit us up on Instagram, Facebook, learnfromus.com. We will keep rocking. And thank you, Paul, for your insight.
Thank you, Seth.
Talk to you soon, my
it
lover,
real.
my friend.